I'll never forget the day my father told me I wasn't built for success. He was holding a beer, eyes glued to the TV, while my older brother, Ryan, stood next to him holding a certificate for something dumb, like most likely to succeed. From his overpriced prep school. I was 14. All I did was bring home a B+ in math. Ryan got a steak dinner when he brought home a B. I got grounded. My whole life I was just the other one. The spare. If Ryan was a Ferrari, I was the dented Toyota Corolla in the driveway no one wanted to wash. It wasn't even subtle. My mom called him her star. She called me kiddo, like I was the neighbor's child they were forced to feed. Fast forward 10 years, and guess who's living in their basement? Yeah, me. After I spent 6 years working HVAC jobs and night shifts to put myself through community college, while Ryan majored in creative branding at NYU on a full ride from mom and dad, I ended up moving back home when the startup I worked for collapsed. They gave me 2 weeks and a severance check that barely covered my car payments. Meanwhile, Ryan was launching his third lifestyle brand from a downtown loft he didn't pay for. He once called me a blue-collar liability at Thanksgiving. I laughed at the time, like it was a joke. It wasn't. Then came the moment everything snapped. Dad had a small construction company. Nothing fancy. 2 crews, a couple trucks, steady work. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave them a nice enough life. When he started talking retirement, I offered to help run the business. I knew the guys, knew the projects, and I had real-world experience. But nope. Guess who they handed the keys to? Ryan, the guy who once asked what a nail gun was. They said he had vision. He rebranded the company in 6 weeks. New name, new logo, a slick website that made zero mention of actual construction, and a slogan that said, "We don't build homes. We build lifestyles." I nearly choked. He fired 3 guys who'd worked for Dad since the 90s, said they didn't match the energy he was cultivating. Then he leased a Tesla with company funds. I watched it like a slow-motion train wreck. Dad kept saying, "Give him a chance. He's got a plan." His plan was to run the company into the ground. He signed 3 deals with innovative partners who had no real capital, just vague Instagram pages and PowerPoints. One of them ghosted him after taking a $25,000 deposit. Another sued him for breach of contract. Dad started getting calls from suppliers asking why they weren't getting paid. I watched the man age 10 years in 2 months. Mom? She was still drinking the Kool-Aid, saying Ryan just needed space to grow. He was disrupting the industry. He was bankrupting it. The final straw came when I overheard Ryan talking to one of his buddies on speakerphone in the kitchen. He said, "If it all goes under, I'll just pin it on Aaron. He's the one with boots on the ground. They'll believe it. That's my name. Aaron, the screw-up." I stood there just outside the doorway, frozen. This wasn't just ego or delusion. This was a setup. So I did something I hadn't done in 28 years. I fought back. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, going over every conversation I'd ever had with Ryan. Every time I'd looked the other way, laughed off his digs, tried to be the bigger person. I thought about Dad's calloused hands, the 40 years he'd spent building something Ryan was tearing apart like a bored kid with a Lego set. And I thought about how my parents would absolutely, without a doubt, believe him over me. The next morning I showed up to the job site early, just me and 3 guys who still hadn't been fired. Yet. I didn't tell them anything, I just worked, quiet, focused, but burning inside. By noon I went home, showered, and put on the shirt and tie I hadn't worn since my college graduation. Then I drove downtown to a lawyer's office. I'll admit, I didn't have much money. But I had something better. Information. I laid it all out. The shady partnerships, the unpaid invoices, the fake consulting fees Ryan was funneling into a shell company registered in his college roommate's name. I had screenshots, emails, texts. I'd been gathering things for weeks without really knowing why. Call it gut instinct or trauma. Same thing, really. The lawyer raised his eyebrows, leaned back in his chair and said, "You're not just blowing the whistle, you're saving your dad's retirement." I filed a formal whistleblower report with the state's licensing board and contacted 2 of the company's oldest suppliers. I gave them everything. Names, paper trails, bank transfers. I even found a receipt where Ryan used the company card to book a 5-star hotel in Miami during what was supposed to be a business retreat. He called it brand development. I called it theft. The fallout began 3 days later. It started with a surprise audit. Then the bank froze the business account. Checks bounced, crews walked. One of the suppliers slapped the company with a lien, halting a $500,000 project mid-foundation. Dad showed up at the site and found a padlock on the trailer. Ryan. Blamed me immediately. He stormed into the house red-faced and shouting like I'd set the place on fire. "You did this. You've been sabotaging me since day one." I didn't say a word. I let the lawyer speak for me because by then, everything was in motion. Dad sat on the couch like someone had hit him in the chest with a brick. Mom kept saying it couldn't be true, that Ryan wouldn't do something like that. Not her Ryan, but the numbers didn't lie. The state suspended Ryan's business license for fraud and mismanagement. He tried to deny it. Blamed the toxic construction culture. Even claimed I had manipulated the documents. Then the police showed up. Apparently, that Miami retreat had included more than drinks by the pool. There was evidence of embezzlement. And the shell company Ryan funneled funds through was tied to an offshore account. They found it because Ryan had literally emailed himself the access credentials. He got arrested wearing a hoodie that said, "Hustle Culture." I wish I was kidding. Mom cried for days. Dad didn't talk to anyone. The house was silent except for the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. It was like living in a funeral home with people who still weren't sure who died. Then one night, Dad called me into the garage. He was sitting in the folding chair next to the old beer fridge, same spot he always went to think. He had two cold ones in his hands. He handed me one and stared ahead like he couldn't quite look at me. "I'm sorry," he said. It was so quiet I almost didn't hear him. I should have seen it. I wanted to believe he was special. But it was you. All along, I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, beer in hand, listening to the crickets outside and trying not to cry like a damn child. Ryan eventually took a plea deal. 2 years probation, community service, and a lifetime ban from holding a contractor's license. His fancy friends stopped answering his calls. His college roommate ghosted him. Guess who he moved back in with? Yep, Mom and Dad. The same basement I used to sleep in. Except now it was my house. Let me just say, watching Ryan move his stuff into my basement was surreal. He tried to act like it was temporary, said it was just until he got back on his feet. Carried in 2 suitcases, a desktop PC, and a duffel bag of gym clothes like he was checking into a hotel. He even had the audacity to ask where I kept the Wi-Fi password. I told him it changed every hour. He didn't laugh. I didn't either. Dad handed over what was left of the business, or rather what could be salvaged. The crews were gone. The reputation was scorched earth. But some of the old clients still trusted me, and a few suppliers said they'd stick around as long as Ryan was nowhere near it. That was the unspoken deal. I changed the company name. Again. Burned all the branding junk Ryan had made. Replaced the Instagram account with a simple website that just said, "We build houses." Period. No more buzzwords. No more lifestyle crap. Just honest work. It was hard. I was juggling 2 part-time side gigs to stay afloat, managing backlogged permits, and doing most of the physical labor myself. I had blisters on my palms, stress headaches every night, and a mild addiction to energy drinks that turned my pee. Neon, but I was rebuilding something real, something mine. Ryan, meanwhile, spent his days upstairs pretending to read business books he bought used on Amazon. I caught him once giving branding tips to a YouTube channel with 15 subscribers. He still thought he had something to offer. Still thought he was misunderstood. He even applied for jobs, marketing, PR, digital strategy. No one called him back. Eventually, he stopped trying. He moped around in sweatpants, sighing loudly every time someone mentioned money. Mom waited on him hand and foot, made him pancakes, defended him constantly. "He's just lost right now," she said. "You were too hard on him." I wanted to scream, too hard. I saved the damn family from total financial ruin. I kept them from losing their house, their retirement, everything. And he's the victim? But I stayed quiet, focused, because I knew Ryan. And I knew this wasn't over. He couldn't stand being irrelevant. He couldn't stand that I was the one people called now, that Dad introduced me as the man in charge, that the suppliers smiled when I walked in, instead of dodging phone calls. He wasn't used to being second. He started poking, leaving passive-aggressive notes in the fridge, complaining about the noise when I came home late from job sites. Once he accidentally sent an email to a client meant for me, filled with thinly veiled insults about my lack of professional polish. The client forwarded it to me and said, "Is this the guy who wore a gold chain to our roof inspection?" Yeah. That was Ryan. I confronted him that night, told him if he ever messaged another client, he'd be out on the curb with his branded bathrobes and whatever's left of his dignity. He didn't say anything, just smirked. That smirk haunted me. It was the same one he wore when he lied to Mom about me breaking the garage window when we were kids. The same one he had when he took credit for my science project in 8th grade. That smug little, "you" won't do anything. Look, And that's when I realized something terrifying. Ryan wasn't just entitled, he was dangerous. Not in a physical way, not the type to throw punches, but he was a snake. Quiet, calculating, someone who could burn everything down just so no one else could have it. So I set up safeguards, changed all the passwords, kept backups of every quote, every invoice, every contractor agreement on an external drive I kept locked in my truck. I even installed a hidden camera in the office, just in case. And it's a good thing I did. Because 3 weeks later, I woke up to chaos. Emails from 3 clients, panic, confusion, claims that contracts had been canceled, that refunds had been requested, and that someone had emailed them posing as me, asking for new wire transfer information. I froze. Logged, and saw the damage. Ryan had tried to sabotage me again, but this time I had proof. I didn't breathe for a full minute. Just sat there, hand trembling over the mouse, staring at the screen as the realization sank in. Ryan had sent out doctored emails using an address 1 character off from mine. He'd copied my signature, posed as me, told clients we were canceling their contracts and that refund requests would be processed via alternate banking channels. He wasn't just trying to humiliate me. He was trying to destroy my entire business. I pulled up the camera. Footage from the office, there he was, 2:43 a.m., hoodie on. Tiptoeing in like a raccoon, rummaging through garbage. Plugged in a flash drive, typed something, hovered around my desk like he was doing me a favor. Gotcha. I burned 3 hours compiling every shred of evidence, timestamps, login attempts, IP addresses, the email headers that traced the message right back to the router upstairs. Then I marched into the kitchen, still in my boots, face flushed with rage. Ryan was sitting there in his boxers, eating cereal like a smug toddler. The audacity. I dropped the printed screenshots on the table. You really thought you'd get away with it? He looked up slowly, smiled, then shrugged. I don't know what you're talking about. That's what broke me. I slammed my fist on the table so hard the cereal bowl jumped. Milk sloshed onto the floor. Mom screamed from the laundry room. Dad appeared in the hallway like a ghost, eyes wide, gripping the wall. I shouted, "You've been trying to ruin me since the day you got caught. You lied, stole, tanked the company, and now you're going after the one thing I've got left?" Ryan leaned back, still smiling. "You think you're so noble, don't you? The good son. The little builder. But you're nothing without me. You'd still be hauling lumber if I hadn't taught you how to think big." I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. "You taught me how to cover my ass, that's it." Dad looked like he was going to throw up. Mom looked at Ryan like she didn't know who he was. "You went into Aaron's office?" she asked, voice shaking. Ryan didn't answer. That was all she needed. She backed away like he was radioactive. Dad looked at me, then at the papers, then at Ryan. And for the first time in my life, I saw it click. Not disappointment, not confusion, just cold, quiet disgust. "Get out," he said. Ryan laughed like it was a joke. "You're not serious." Dad didn't blink. "You're not my son anymore." It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. Ryan tried to argue, pleaded, got loud, called me a liar, said I faked it all. But the evidence was solid, undeniable, and this time no one was covering for him. I helped him pack. He tried to slam doors and make dramatic speeches, but nobody was listening. Not anymore. He left with 2 suitcases and a bruised ego. Mom cried. Of course she did. But this time she didn't ask me to forgive him. She didn't tell me I was being too harsh. She just sat on the porch holding my hand and said, "I'm sorry we let it get this far." That was the closest thing to peace I'd had in years. I changed the locks, changed the alarm codes, even got a dog, big mutt named Tank, who growled at shadows and slept next to the office door like a hired bodyguard. Business picked back up, slowly at first, then faster. Clients told their friends. Old crews returned. We hired new guys too. People who didn't know Ryan, didn't know the drama, just showed up to work and left without trying to redefine the brand. I finally had control, not just over the business, but my life. No more walking on eggshells. No more second-guessing every decision because I might upset the golden boy. But then came the twist I never saw coming. One of the subcontractors I worked with, Manny, solid guy, great framer, invited me to a little cookout at his place one Saturday. Burgers, beers, backyard kind of thing. I brought Tank, wore jeans and a tee, and for once I felt normal. That's when Manny's cousin walked in. And guess who she was dating? Ryan. He'd moved 3 towns over, rebranded himself as a construction consultant, and was peddling half-baked real estate advice on TikTok under the name Rye Vision. Worse, he was telling people I had stolen the family business from him. He was still out there poisoning the well. still telling his story first, and people believed him. I watched one of his videos later that night. He looked straight into the camera and said, "I was betrayed by my own blood. My vision was too big for small minds, but I've rebuilt. Bigger, stronger." He ended it with a wink, that same smug, punchable wink. I knew then. I couldn't ignore him forever. I didn't sleep that night, not out of fear. I'd done fear. I'd done stress. I'd done the whole, maybe it'll blow over routine. This was different. This was war. I watched all 10 of Ryan's videos, back to back. Every single one was filled with the kind of overconfident snake oil nonsense you'd expect from a guy who once tried to market a hammer as a handheld structural persuader. He was spinning this fantasy narrative. He was the visionary who built the company. I was the bitter brother who stole it in a power grab, and now he was rising from the ashes to teach people how to scale their hustle. Worse, people were buying it. One of the clips had 200,000 views. He had sponsors, a freaking merch line. And I was still out here pulling 14-hour shifts and rubbing Tiger Balm on my knees just to get through the week. I could have let it go. Let him crash and burn on his own again. But that smug little wink? Nah, that crossed a line. So I started planning. Not revenge. I wasn't going to stoop to his level. But the truth? I was going to broadcast it loud and clear. Step 1. Clean up the business. Get my paperwork flawless. Contracts, testimonials, permits. Everything tidy, organized, professional. I hired a local college kid, Becca, who knew her way around spreadsheets like a ninja. She digitized our entire backlog in 2 weeks. Step 2. I started recording. Videos of our job sites, before and afters, crew interviews, happy clients. I even brought in a drone for overhead shots. Made sure everything screamed, honest work. Real people, no gimmicks. Step 3. I told my story. Not some dramatic sob story, just the truth. Sat down in front of my phone one night after a long day, still in my dusty work clothes, and said, "I'm not a guru, not flashy, but I know how to build homes. My brother used to be part of this, then he burned it to the ground. I picked up the pieces." That video didn't go viral. It exploded. The comments were wild. People saying it reminded them of their own family drama, of toxic siblings, of narcissists who always land on their feet while good folks stay quiet. Suddenly, I was the one getting interview requests. Contractors I hadn't heard from in years were asking to come back. My inbox was flooded with support. And clients, real ones, started doubling down, referring me to everyone they knew. Ryan? He started slipping. First, a few of his business tips got flagged for plagiarism. Then someone dug up an old Yelp review from a failed side hustle he tried running out of his girlfriend's garage. Something about selling luxury artisan firewood that turned out to be chopped pallets. One of his sponsors pulled out. Then, another, then came the cherry on top. Remember that little stunt he pulled, faking emails to clients? Well, turns out 2 of those clients were quietly waiting to sue, but they needed proof of intent. And now, with his videos publicly lying, "Bout me." Boom. They had it. I handed over the footage, the email logs, the camera timestamps, didn't even flinch. And Ryan? He got hit with a lawsuit so big it made his fake Rolex spin. I didn't gloat. Not to his face, but I will admit, when I saw his Vision channel vanish off TikTok one morning, I cracked open a cold one at 8 a.m. and toasted to it. Right there on the porch, Tank barked at the sunrise like he knew we won. Mom cried again, but this time it felt like release, like some awful pressure had finally lifted off her chest. Dad shook my hand and said, "You're the kind of man I always hoped one of my sons would grow into." It hit me hard. All my life, I wanted that sentence. Not a medal, not a trophy, just those damn words. And finally I'd earned them. But the story doesn't end there, because life's funny like that. Just when I thought I could breathe, rebuild, relax, Ryan showed up. He showed up like a bad storm you thought had passed. Middle of the day, bright sun overhead. I was at a site checking framing on a 2-story remodel. One of the guys walked over, pale, and said, Aaron, there's someone here asking? For you, says he's your brother." I turned the corner and there he was, Ryan tan like he'd just come back from hiding in Cancun, wearing some ridiculous tight black polo and sunglasses that probably cost more than my truck payment. He didn't. Looked like someone who just got sued, canceled, and torched online. He looked like a man with another plan. "What the hell do you want?" I asked. Flat. No emotion left to give him. He took off his glasses like we were about to film a shampoo commercial. "I'm here to bury the hatchet." "Which one?" I asked. "You buried so many in my back already." He laughed like it was some playful roast. Come on, man, we're family. Yeah, I said, so we're Cain and Abel. He walked toward me, not fast, not aggressive, just calculated. Always calculated. Look, I made some bad calls, we both know that, but this whole internet war, it's getting old. People love a redemption arc. I say we team up, rebrand, tell our story. Two brothers rebuilding. It could be a hit. We could go nationwide. I stared at him like he was speaking in tongues. You sabotaged me. You tried to destroy everything I built. Lied to clients, impersonated me, nearly got me shut down. He raised his hands like he was negotiating a parking ticket. It was business. You of all people should understand that. That's when something in me cracked. I grabbed the clipboard off my truck, flipped to the restraining order paperwork my lawyer had filed last week, just in case, and held it up. See this? You so much as breathe near one of my sites again, I'll have you hauled out in cuffs. You're done, Ryan. You're radioactive. No one trusts you. No one wants you around. His smile faltered. That same smug mask, the one that had gotten him out of everything since we were kids, started to slip. You really think you're better than me? He asked, voice lower now, bitter. I made you. You were nothing before I brought you in. Just a glorified carpenter with a savior complex. Yeah, I said, stepping closer, voice steel. And now I'm a business owner with a clean name, real clients and a future, while you're out here begging for scraps and hashtags. He looked like he was about to lunge at me, fists twitching, jaw clenched. But then my crew stepped out from the house, 4 guys. Big guys, holding framing hammers and looking real curious. Tank, my mutt, had followed the noise too. He walked up next to me, growled once, low and slow. Just a little reminder. Ryan backed up. Fast. He muttered something about lawsuits and not being done, but I didn't hear the rest. I was already walking back to work. That was 6 months ago. He vanished after that. No more videos, no more Rye Vision. His girlfriend dumped him. His car got repoed. His name became a running joke among local contractors. The influencer who couldn't hang drywall. The lawsuit settled in my client's favor. He had to pay damages, not a lot. He didn't have much left, but enough to stain his record. I, on the other hand, I got featured in a local business magazine. The story of the brother betrayed, who built back better, made rounds on a few blogs. I didn't lean into it for fame, just wanted people to know the truth. Mom and Dad, they're different now. We're not pretending anymore. No more pretending Ryan's some prodigal son. No more biting our tongues, just honesty. It's raw sometimes, but it's real. Dad comes to sites with me sometimes, just to watch. He brings donuts and coffee and tells everyone how proud he is of his son, the builder. And you know what? I believe him now. I'm not haunted by Ryan's shadow anymore. I walk into my office, see the framed blueprints on the wall, the stack of honest invoices, the crew photos on the fridge, and I know every inch of it is mine, built with calloused hands and clean intent. No gimmicks, no ego, no lies, just sweat, grit, and peace. And every now and then when someone asks me if I've heard from Ryan, I just smile, pet tank, and say, yeah. Last I heard, he was trying to sell motivational cement mixers on Etsy. They laugh, so do I. But inside, I'm just grateful. Not that I beat him, not that I exposed him, but that I finally stepped out from the wreckage and built something he could never touch. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.